The flight touched down at Denver International at 4:47 p.m., 3 hours earlier than scheduled. Clayton Noble gathered his carry-on from the overhead compartment, his phone already showing missed texts from the conference organizers apologizing for the venue's sprinkler malfunction. 26 hours of preparation for a cybersecurity presentation, canceled because someone couldn't maintain basic plumbing infrastructure. Clayton had built his consulting firm, Noble Defense Solutions, from nothing over the past 12 years. He specialized in digital forensics and network security for mid-sized corporations, the kind of work that paid well, but kept him on the road 2 weeks every month. His daughter, Emma, 8 years old with her mother's dark hair and a stubborn chin, had stopped asking when Daddy would be home. She learned to measure time in sleeps instead. The Uber dropped him at his house in Lakewood just after 6. October twilight painted the street in amber, and Clayton noticed his wife's car wasn't in the driveway. Neither was his mother-in-law's ancient Buick. The house stood dark except for the porch light on its timer. He unlocked the door, dropped his bag in the foyer. "Hello." Silence answered him. Clayton checked his phone. No messages from Jennifer. He called her number. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. "Hey, it's me. Home early. Where you guys?" He tried Emma's iPad next, the one with the family tracking app. Offline. That wasn't unusual. Jennifer was terrible about keeping devices charged. Clayton walked through the house anyway, checking rooms with growing unease he couldn't quite name. Everything looked normal. Dishes in the sink. Emma's homework scattered across the dining table, fractions half finished. Her backpack hung on its usual hook. Jennifer called back at 6:23. "Clay, you're home? I thought your flight wasn't until tomorrow. Conference got canceled. Where's Emma?" "She's at my mom's. They're doing a sleepover thing." Jennifer's voice carried that breezy tone she used when she was distracted. He heard traffic in the background. "I'm just running errands. Be home in an hour." Which errands take an hour at 6:30 on a Friday? "Jesus, Clayton. I'm at Target. Do you want me to send you my receipt?" He pinched the bridge of his nose. "No. Sorry. Long day. You want me to pick up Emma?" "No need. Mom's got it handled. They were going to make cookies or something. I'll get her in the morning." They talked for another minute about nothing. His canceled trip, what to do for dinner. After hanging up, Clayton stood in the kitchen, unable to shake the feeling that something was misaligned. He'd learned to trust that instinct during his years as a digital forensics investigator. The feeling that one log file didn't match the others. The timestamp that shouldn't exist. Emma's iPad was still offline. Clayton drove to his mother-in-law's house without calling ahead. Martha Hickman lived in Arvada, 40 minutes in Friday traffic. She'd never liked him, made that clear from the day he'd started dating Jennifer 20 years ago. Community college boy, she called him once, not realizing he could hear through the kitchen door. Never mind that he'd built a 7-figure business. Some people measured worth differently. The sky had darkened to purple by the time he pulled onto Martha Street. Her house, a gray 2-story with peeling paint, sat at the end of a cul-de-sac. No cars in the driveway. No lights visible through the windows. Clayton parked and got out anyway. Walked up the cracked concrete path. Knocked. Waited. Knocked again. Nothing. He circled to the backyard, using his phone's flashlight. The yard was an overgrown mess, weeds choking what had once been a garden. A rusted swing set listed to one side. And at the far end of the property, past the dead flower beds, stood a shed. Light leaked through gaps in the wooden walls. Clayton walked toward it, dead grass crunching under his shoes. The shed was old, maybe 10 by 12 feet, with a pitched roof and a single door. Someone had replaced the original lock with a heavy-duty padlock. The hasp hung open. He pulled the door. Emma sat in a folding chair in the center of the shed floor. Her wrists were zip-tied to the chair's arms. Her ankles were bound to the legs with the same industrial plastic strips, pulled so tight that her feet barely touched the concrete. She'd been crying. Her face was blotchy and swollen, but she wasn't crying now. Her eyes went huge when she saw him. "Daddy," she whispered. Clayton's vision tunneled. The shed contained a workbench along one wall, scattered with tools and paint cans. A space heater glowed orange in the corner, and mounted on a tripod, lens pointed directly at Emma, sat a video camera. The record light blinked red. "Don't move, baby." His voice came out steady despite the roaring in his ears. He crossed her, pulled out his pocket knife, cut through the zip ties. Emma's hands were purple from restricted circulation. She collapsed against him, shaking. "How long have you been here?" "Since dinner." Her voice was so small. "Grandpa said you wouldn't notice. Said Mom wouldn't care." Clayton picked her up. She weighed almost nothing. He carried her toward the door, then stopped. The camera was still recording. He set Emma down carefully, told her to wait outside, then walked to the tripod. The camera was a professional model, the kind that cost $3,000. It was connected to a laptop on the bench, also expensive. The screen showed a file directory with hundreds of videos, labeled with dates going back 18 months. His hands moved automatically, years of digital forensics training taking over. He ejected the SD card from the camera, disconnected the external hard drive from the laptop, found 2 more hard drives in a locked drawer that took him 15 seconds to open with a screwdriver. He put everything in a cardboard box he found under the bench. Emma stood in the yard, hugging herself. Clayton lifted her again, carried her to his car. She didn't speak during the drive to the emergency room. Neither did he. He couldn't trust what would come out if he opened his mouth. The ER doctor was a woman in her 50s named Dr. Patricia Kim. She examined Emma in a private room while Clayton waited outside, his hands opening and closing into fists. 20 minutes later, Dr. Kim emerged. "No signs of sexual abuse," she said quietly. "Some bruising on her wrists and ankles from the restraints. Mild dehydration. She's physically okay, Mr. Noble. But we need to call the police and social services. This is a mandatory reporting situation." "I know." The police arrived at 9:15 p.m. 2 officers, 1 male and 1 female. Detective Aaron Sanderson took point, mid-40s, graying hair, the kind of cop who'd seen too much and stopped being surprised by anything. Clayton told them everything. The early return, the shed, the camera. He showed them the box of hard drives and SD cards. "I'll need those," Sanderson said. "I know." Clayton handed over the box. "I also need copies." "That's not how this works. I'm a digital forensics investigator. I run Noble Defense Solutions. I have the facilities to analyze this properly, and I have the legal right to copies of evidence related to crimes against my daughter." Sanderson studied him. "You planning to do something stupid?" "I'm planning to make sure whoever did this doesn't walk on a technicality because some evidence chain got broken. You want this to stick? Let me help." They went back and forth for another 10 minutes. Eventually, Sanderson made a call to someone higher up the chain. An hour later, Clayton had signed more paperwork than he'd signed buying his house, and a tech had duplicated the drives. Jennifer arrived at the hospital at 10:47 p.m. She pushed past the officers, found Clayton in the waiting area. "What the hell happened?" They said Emma was hurt. He looked at his wife. Really looked at her. She was wearing makeup. New earrings he hadn't seen before. Her shirt was expensive, not the Target clearance rack she usually shopped. "Where were you tonight, Jen?" "I told you. Running errands." "Show me your receipts." Her face changed. "Are you seriously interrogating me right now? Our daughter is in the hospital in your—" "She wasn't at your mother's house," Clayton said flatly. "She was tied to a chair in the shed. She'd been there for 5 hours. Jennifer went white. For a moment, just a moment, Clayton thought he saw something flicker across her face. Not shock, not horror, something else. Then it was gone, replaced by appropriate maternal panic. "Oh my God. Oh my God, is she okay? Where's my mom?" "What? Your mother wasn't home." The house was empty. Emma was alone in that shed with a video camera recording her. "A camera? I don't. Who would?" Jennifer grabbed his arm. "Clay, where is she? I need to see her." Detective Sanderson stepped forward. "Mrs. Noble, I'm going to need you to come down to the station and answer some questions." "Questions about what?" "I don't know anything about this." "Then it shouldn't take long." Clayton watched them take her away. The female officer, her nameplate read Garcia, stayed behind. "Mr. Noble, do you have somewhere your daughter can stay tonight? We're going to need to process your house and your mother-in-law's property. Could take a few days. I have a friend in Boulder, Trevor Buckley. He's good people." "Okay, get her settled, get some rest." We'll need a full statement from Emma tomorrow, but we'll have a specialist handle that. Child psychologist. He nodded. Dr. Kim released Emma an hour later with prescriptions for anxiety medication and the name of a trauma therapist. Clayton carried her to the car again. She hadn't spoken since the hospital, just stared at nothing with those huge, empty eyes. Trevor and his wife Kendra took them in without questions. They had 2 kids of their own, both teenagers, and a house big enough that Emma could have her own room. Clayton put her to bed, sat beside her until she fell asleep. Then he went downstairs to Trevor's home office and plugged in the first hard drive. The forensic software took 20 minutes to catalog the contents. 847 video files. The oldest dated back 19 months. Clayton opened the most recent one, the one that had been recording tonight. The video showed Emma being led into the shed by Martha Hickman. His mother-in-law's face was clearly visible. She was speaking, but there was no audio. She zip-tied Emma to the chair, methodical and practiced. Then she adjusted the camera, checked the angle, and left. Emma sat there for the next 4 hours and 32 minutes. She cried for the first hour. Then she just sat, staring at nothing. Clayton closed the file. Opened another one from 3 weeks ago. Same setup, same shed, same chair. Emma, younger, crying harder. He opened a file from 6 months ago. Same thing. 12 months ago. Same thing. Every video showed the same scene. Emma, bound to the chair. Sometimes she was crying. Sometimes she was silent. Sometimes she was begging the camera to let her go. The timestamps showed a pattern. Every Friday evening around 6 p.m. Like clockwork. Clayton opened a spreadsheet, started building a timeline. His hands moved mechanically. Years of forensic training creating structure from chaos. Date. Duration. Observable details. He worked through the night, documenting every file. At 3:47 a.m., he found a first video that showed someone else. Jennifer entered the frame. She walked to Emma, said something Clayton couldn't hear. Emma shook her head. Jennifer slapped her. Not hard, a warning slap. Then Jennifer left, and Emma cried until the recording stopped. Clayton sat back in the chair. The room spun slightly. He stood up, walked to the bathroom, vomited, washed his face, went back to the computer. He found 17 more videos with Jennifer. She appeared sporadically, never for long. Sometimes she brought Emma water. Sometimes she adjusted the camera. Once she checked her phone while Emma begged in the background. At 5:15 a.m., Trevor found him still at the computer. Jesus, Clay. Have you slept? Can't. Clayton's voice was hoarse. I need to see all of it. Need to understand. Trevor pulled up a chair. Show me. They went through the files together. Trevor was a patent attorney, detail-oriented and methodical. He helped Clayton build the documentation, timestamp every video, note every person who appeared. By 7 a.m., they had a complete picture. Martha Hickman had orchestrated everything. Jennifer had been complicit in at least 20% of the incidents. No one else appeared in any video. This was a tight operation, just grandmother and mother, torturing a child for reasons Clayton couldn't begin to understand. Why? Trevor asked. What's the goddamn point? Clayton had no answer. He opened another file, one from the middle of the timeline. This one was different. The camera angle was wrong, pointed at the workbench instead of the chair. He could hear voices, muffled but audible. Martha's voice, needs to learn. Crying won't help her. Jennifer's voice? I know, Mom. I know. But Clayton's going to notice eventually. He's not stupid. Clayton's never here. And when he is, he's locked in that office. He doesn't pay attention to anything except his work. Still, we should be careful. We are being careful. Now go. I'll handle this. The video ended. Clayton played it again. Then again. Jennifer's voice, casual and calm, discussing his work schedule, discussing how to hide their abuse of his daughter. No hesitation. No remorse. He thought about the new earrings, the expensive shirt, the receipts she wouldn't show him. Trevor was watching him. What are you thinking? I'm thinking, Clayton said slowly, that I need to understand what I'm dealing with before I make any moves. The police have their investigation. That's the legal path. But legal doesn't always mean just. Clay, I need you to do something for me. Call that PI you used for the Westfield patent case. The one who found the offshore accounts. Sam Spencer. Yeah, I need comprehensive surveillance on Jennifer and Martha. Where they go, who they meet, financial records, phone records, everything. And I need it yesterday. Trevor was quiet for a long moment. This is going to get ugly. It already is ugly. I just want to know how ugly before it gets worse. At 8 a.m., Clayton called his office and told his assistant to clear his schedule for the next month. Family emergency. At 9 a.m., he called Detective Sanderson and gave him the documented timeline of every video file. At 10 a.m., he kissed Emma goodbye. She was awake but still not speaking, and drove back to Lakewood to wait for the police to finish processing his house. He sat in his car outside, staring at the building he'd called home for 9 years. Everything looked normal. The neighbor was mowing his lawn. A kid rode by on a bicycle. Normal Friday morning in suburban Denver. Except his wife had been helping torture their daughter for the better part of 2 years. Clayton's phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Noble? This is Sam Spencer. Trevor Buckley asked me to call you. How fast can you start? Already started. I pulled preliminary financials while we were talking. Your wife has a bank account you don't know about. Opened 14 months ago. Regular deposits, $2,000 every Friday. Total accumulated balance of $94,000. Clayton felt something cold settle in his chest. Source. That's where it gets interesting. The deposits are cash. Structured to avoid reporting requirements. Someone who knows what they're doing. Can you trace them? Working on it. But Mr. Noble, I've been doing this for 15 years. This pattern? Someone was paying your wife. The question is what for? Clayton already knew the answer. He'd seen in those videos, watched Jennifer check her phone while Emma cried. This wasn't just abuse. This was business. Find out who, he said. Find out everything. Money is not an object. He hung up and sat in his car for another 20 minutes, thinking. Jennifer had been paid to hurt their daughter. Martha had organized it. And somewhere out there was a third party, someone with enough money to pay $2,000 a week for videos of a child in distress. The legal system would handle Martha and Jennifer. Charges would be filed. Trials would happen. They might even go to prison. But the person paying them? That would take something different. Something the courts couldn't touch. Clayton had built his career on understanding how criminals think, how they hide their digital tracks. He'd helped catch embezzlers, corporate spies, data thieves. This was personal. This was his daughter. And whoever was buying those videos was going to learn that some people shouldn't be crossed. Detective Sanderson called at noon. We arrested Martha Hickman. She's not talking. Lawyered up immediately. Your wife is still at the station. She's saying she didn't know anything about the shed. She's lying. I know. We have the videos. But she's sticking to her story. Says her mother must have done everything while she was out. Where does she say she was? Sanderson hesitated. Mr. Noble. Where? She provided receipts from a hotel in downtown Denver. The Ritz-Carlton. Says she was meeting a friend. Won't provide the friend's name. $2,000 every Friday. Hotel receipts. A friend she won't name. The cold thing in Clayton's chest grew larger. Sam Spencer is working for me, he said. Former federal investigator. He's going to find out who Jennifer was meeting and who was paying for those videos. When he does, I'll let you know. Clayton, I'm not going to do anything illegal, detective. I'm just going to make sure you have every piece of evidence needed to bury whoever's involved in this. That's all. He hung up before Sanderson could argue. The police would do their job. Clayton would do his. And somewhere in the intersection of those two paths, justice would find the people who'd hurt his daughter. He just had to be patient. He just had to be smart. And he had to be willing to go places the law couldn't follow. Emma started speaking again on Sunday. Short sentences, mostly. She told the child psychologist about the shed, about the chair, about how Grandma Martha said Daddy didn't love her because he was never home, about how Mommy said Emma was making everything up, but then she'd bring water and tell her to be quiet. Clayton listened to the recording later, his jaw clenched so tight it ached. The psychologist was good, gentle, patient, never leading. Emma's voice was small and monotone, reciting horrors like a grocery list. By Monday, Sam Spencer had preliminary results. Jennifer's mystery deposits traced back to a series of LLC shell companies. The companies were registered in Delaware, owned by a trust in the Cayman Islands. Professional-grade laundering, the kind that took serious resources. Whoever's behind this has money and knows how to hide it, Sam said over the phone. But they made one mistake. The hotel. Your wife charged dinner to her room 3 times. The bills show 2 guests. I pulled security footage. She was meeting the same man every time. Ooh, working on it. Facial recognition is running now. Give me 24 hours. Clayton spent that time with Emma, trying to be present in a way he hadn't been for years. She was fragile, jumping at sudden sounds, refusing to go into any room alone. The trauma therapist said it would take months, maybe years. Some things never fully healed. On Tuesday morning, Sam called back. Got him. Vernon Romero, 43 years old, runs an import-export business in Colorado Springs. On paper, he's clean, but I dug deeper. Found sealed juvenile records, sexual assault on a minor when he was 17. Charges were dropped. Family paid off the victim. Since then, nothing official. But there are rumors. Missing persons cases in 3 states. Girls between 7 and 11. No evidence connecting him, but the pattern's there. Clayton's hand tightened on the phone. Where does he live? Don't do anything stupid, Clayton. I'm not going to. I just want to know. Sam gave him an address in Cedar Heights, an expensive neighborhood south of the city. He lives alone. Works from home mostly. Travels internationally about once a month. His next trip is scheduled for this Friday. Tokyo, business meeting. He'll be gone 2 weeks. Thank you. Clayton, I'm just gathering information. That's all. He hung up and sat very still, thinking. Vernon Romero. A predator who'd learned to hide behind money and lawyers. Who'd found Jennifer somehow, corrupted her with cash, turned her into an accomplice. Who'd been paying to watch videos of Emma's suffering. The police would investigate him eventually. Sam's research would lead them there. Charges might be filed, or they might not. Rich men, with good lawyers, had ways of making problems disappear. Clayton couldn't allow that. He spent Tuesday night at his computer, building a profile. Vernon Romero's digital life was extensive. Social media, business accounts, encrypted messaging apps. Clayton had tools for cracking encryption, backdoors he'd discovered during his forensic work. Tools that weren't exactly legal, but got results. By Wednesday morning, he had access to Vernon's email. The man was careful. He used code words, avoided explicit language. But the pattern was clear. He'd been soliciting custom videos for years. Not just for Jennifer. There were at least 6 other women, all paid the same way, all producing content featuring their own children. Clayton documented everything, made copies, encrypted them, and uploaded them to secure servers. Then he drafted an anonymous package and sent it to Detective Sanderson, the FBI, and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. The legal system would have Vernon Romero's name by Thursday. But Clayton wasn't done. He drove to Cedar Heights on Wednesday night, parked down the street from Vernon's house. The place was a mansion, 7,000 square feet, gated driveway, security cameras covering every angle. Vernon had money. Vernon had protection. Vernon had no idea what was coming. Clayton sat in his car until midnight, watching. Vernon's lights went off at 11:30. The house went dark. Clayton drove home, climbed into bed in Trevor's guest room, and slept for the first time in 4 days. Thursday morning, Detective Sanderson called. We got your package. The FBI is taking over the Romero investigation. This is bigger than we thought. There are victims in 7 states. Good. Clayton, we need you to stay out of this now. Let's do our jobs. Of course. I mean it. Whatever you're planning. I'm not planning anything. I'm just taking care of my daughter. He meant it. The police would handle Vernon through legal channels. Clayton's part in that was done. He'd given them everything they needed to destroy the man's life through the courts. But courts took time. Trials could last years. And sometimes people found ways to escape. Clayton wasn't willing to risk it. He spent Thursday with Emma, taking her to the park, buying ice cream, pretending everything was normal. She smiled once, just briefly, when a dog ran up to them. The first smile he'd seen in a week. Friday morning, Vernon Romero boarded a flight to Tokyo. Sam Spencer confirmed it. C2A, JL Flight 004, departed Denver at 11:15 a.m. Clayton waited until 3 p.m., then made a phone call to a number he'd found buried in Vernon's encrypted files. A contact in Tokyo. Another predator, based on the message history. "This is Vernon," Clayton said, modulating his voice to match the recordings he'd studied. "Change of plans. Need to meet tonight instead of tomorrow. Same place." The voice on the other end was suspicious. "Vernon? You sound different. Bad connection. Can you do tonight or not?" "Yes, but..." Clayton hung up, sent a follow-up text from Vernon's phone. He'd cloned it that morning using tools that technically violated about 6 federal laws. The contact confirmed. Meeting set for 9 p.m. Tokyo time, 6 a.m. Denver time. Then Clayton made another call. This one to an old friend from his Army days. A guy named Chuck Taylor who'd gone into private security after his discharge. Chuck worked in Tokyo now, did personal protection for executives. "Chuck, I need a favor. And I need you not to ask questions." "How big a favor?" "The kind that needs to happen fast and never get mentioned again." Chuck was quiet for a moment. "This legal? Does it matter?" "I guess not." "What do you need?" Clayton told him. Gave him Vernon's Tokyo contact information, the meeting location, everything. "This man is a child predator. He's meeting another predator. I need evidence of that meeting. Photos, recordings, anything that can't be denied. And then you call the Tokyo police. Anonymous tip. Let them catch him red-handed. Clayton, if this goes wrong." "It won't. Vernon Romero is arrogant. He thinks he's untouchable. He'll walk right into it." Chuck agreed. Clayton wired him $20,000 and waited. 6 a.m. Saturday morning, Denver time, Chuck sent photos. Vernon Romero and another man, meeting in a hotel room. The photos showed a laptop between them, screen visible. The screen showed images that made Clayton want to put his fist through a wall. 10 minutes later, Chuck sent another message. "Police raid in progress. Both men in custody. Evidence seized." Clayton deleted the texts, wiped his cloned phone, and destroyed the SIM card. Vernon Romero was now in a Tokyo jail, facing charges in a country with a 99% conviction rate and no lenient sentencing for child predators. He'd never see freedom again. Saturday afternoon, Detective Sanderson called again. "Your mother-in-law is talking. She took a plea deal. 20 years, eligible for parole in 12. She's giving us names, details, everything. Your wife's lawyer is trying to negotiate, but we have her dead to rights. She's looking at 15 minimum." "Good. There's something else. We got a tip about Vernon Romero. He was arrested in Tokyo last night. Caught red-handed with enough evidence to put him away for life." "That's convenient." "Yeah, real convenient." Sanderson's voice was dry. "You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?" "How would I know anything about what happens in Tokyo, detective?" "Right. Well, just so you know, the FBI is cooperating with Japanese authorities. Romero's not coming back to the States. He'll be prosecuted there. Their prisons make ours look like summer camp." Clayton felt something loosen in his chest. Vernon Romero would spend the rest of his life in a foreign prison, alone and destroyed. Martha and Jennifer would spend decades in American facilities, their reputations shattered, their freedom gone. "What about Emma?" Clayton asked. "Victim Services is setting up counseling. Long-term support. The DA says you'll have full custody, no question. Your wife's parental rights will be terminated." "Thank you." He hung up and went upstairs to Emma's room. She was playing with Kendra's daughter's old dolls, setting up an elaborate tea party. When she saw him, she held up a plastic cup. "Want some tea, Daddy?" Clayton sat down on the floor, took the cup. "I'd love some." They played together until dinner, and for the first time in a week, Emma laughed. A real laugh, genuine and bright. It was the sweetest sound Clayton had ever heard. The legal aftermath took 3 months. Jennifer pleaded guilty to child endangerment, criminal abuse, and conspiracy. The judge gave her 18 years. Martha got 23. Both would serve their time in separate facilities, no contact allowed. Vernon Romero was sentenced in Tokyo to 35 years at hard labor. The international investigation uncovered 43 victims across 9 countries. The FBI dismantled an entire network of predators, traffickers, and corrupt officials. Clayton sold the house in Lakewood. Too many bad memories. He bought a smaller place in Boulder, close to Trevor and Kendra. Emma transferred schools, started over with a clean slate. The nightmares faded slowly. The therapy helped. So did Clayton's presence. He cut his travel to zero, ran his business entirely from home. 6 months after that night in the shed, Emma asked if they could get a dog. Clayton said yes immediately. They went to the shelter, and Emma chose a 3-legged terrier mix named Lucky. The dog slept in Emma's room and followed her everywhere. "He's like you, Daddy," Emma said one night at dinner. "He keeps me safe." Clayton reached across the table, squeezed her hand. "Always, baby. Always." He never told her about Tokyo. Never told her about the calls he'd made or the favors he'd called in. She didn't need to know. She just needed to know that monsters could be defeated, that bad people face consequences, that her father would move heaven and earth to protect her. Some nights, Clayton lay awake thinking about the choices he'd made, the laws he'd broken, the risks he'd taken. He'd crossed lines that couldn't be uncrossed, used skills that were meant for legal investigations to orchestrate illegal revenge. He didn't regret any of it. Justice had been served through the courts. But some evils required a more personal touch. Vernon Romero would have had lawyers, appeals, delays. Might have found some technicality, some way out. Now he was rotting in a Japanese prison, his life destroyed, his crimes exposed for the world to see. Martha and Jennifer were behind bars where they belonged. The other women in Vernon's network had been arrested. Children had been rescued. The system had worked, but only because Clayton had pushed it in the right direction. 1 year after that terrible Friday, Emma had her 9th birthday party. She invited 12 kids from school, and they ran through the backyard, screaming with laughter while Lucky barked and chased them. Clayton stood on the deck, watching, feeling something like peace. Trevor came up beside him, handed him a beer. "She's doing good." "Yeah, she is. You ever think about what you did? The Tokyo thing." Clayton took a long drink. "Every day. Regret it. Not even a little." Trevor nodded. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the children play. Emma was in the middle of them, face flushed with happiness, no trace of that broken child in the shed. "For what it's worth," Trevor said quietly, "I would have done the same thing." Clayton clinked his beer against Trevor's. "I know." Later that night, after the party ended and the guests went home, Emma climbed into Clayton's lap while they watched a movie. Lucky sprawled across both their legs, snoring softly. "Daddy," Emma said. "Yeah, baby. I'm glad you came home early that night." Clayton's throat tightened. "Me too. And Daddy, I know you did something to make the bad people go away. You don't have to tell me what, but thank you." He looked down at her. His 8-year-old daughter, no, 9 now, who'd been through hell and come out the other side, who was smart enough to know that her father had stepped outside the rules, and kind enough not to ask for details. "You're welcome," he whispered. She fell asleep 20 minutes later. Clayton carried her upstairs, tucked her in, kissed her forehead. Lucky jumped up on the bed and settled at her feet. Clayton stood in the doorway, watching them both sleep. His daughter was safe. The people who'd hurt her were paying for their crimes. The system had worked, with a little help from a father who'd been willing to do what needed to be done. Tomorrow he'd go back to work, back to the routine of life. But tonight, he allowed himself to feel what he'd earned through months of planning, investigation, and calculated revenge. Victory, not the hollow kind, not the kind that came from luck or circumstance. The kind that came from fighting for someone you loved, from refusing to accept that monsters couldn't be stopped, from understanding that sometimes justice needed a push. Clayton Noble had one. And the people who tried to destroy his daughter had lost everything. That was enough. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.